Hello Nerd League, Nerd Down Dylan here. I just came back from Toronto Comicon here in 2018. The first person I ran into was artist Keith Grachow, who's developing multiple series. Here's what Keith had to say. Keith, how are you doing today, and what is it that you're promoting today?
Okay, well, as you mentioned, Saltwater, we have issue 1 and 2 available. Toronto Comics Anthology is currently running a Kickstarter for Volume 5, which I have a story in. I also did a story for Volume 3. I have a comic book called Weapon Warriors that was written by a 13-year-old, and we're actually working on issue number 2 right now.
All right, thank you.
And then I have my children's books that I collaborate on with my mom, and then I have a bunch of other comic book stories in the works that should be coming out later this year.
Now, Weapon Warriors, is that the one you were teaching art, I believe, right, to this student of yours, and then you guys kind of developed that together?
Yeah, I was contacted by his father a few years ago. His son had written this story and they wanted to adapt it into a comic book and they weren't sure how to do it. So initially it was just me teaching him how to create, and over a year we just kept on going further and further with the process until we had a finished product, which we decided to go to print. And then they contacted me earlier, mid last year, to work on the second one. So we've been doing that ever since mid last year.
And the Toronto Comics, or the anthology, what does that all entail?
It's a bunch of artists and writers local to the GTA writing stories about Toronto, and they're all different styles, all different genres. They're self-contained stories, so while I encourage you to get the previous 4 volumes, you don't necessarily have to get them in any particular order. Volume 5 is currently going through a Kickstarter, and I have a story in there with Peter Harish, the writer, who I believe he did something for Hogtown Horrors, which is kind of side affiliated with Toronto Comics. But my story with him is My Heart Burns for Thee, which is, it's kind of a comedic story about a first date where this guy's trying to impress his date, and he does this the C&E food eating contest to impress her. And essentially it's kind of goes muck from the beginning, but it ends very, very sweetly. So I encourage you to check out some of the samples at the Kickstarter webpage. And I also have a original piece of the clown that's in the story as a reward.
Oh, nice. And what's in store for Saltwater and Polybius Dreams?
Well, Polybius Dreams Chapter 2 I just wrapped up. It's going into letter and coloring, and then Ben Grisante, the creator and writer, is going to get it printed very shortly. So for those that donated to the Kickstarter for Chapter 2, you'll be able to get your copy pretty soon. And then Saltwater, I'm going on a little trip in April, and then when I come back, I'm going to be working on that full force to have released for September of this year.
All right, awesome. Well, thanks very much, Keith.
Thank you.
For those of you that follow the Nerd Down live on Twitch, you probably know that Morgan's Organs is one of the comics that I go on about the most. I got to sit down with the developer of that series, Daniel Brodie. Nerd League, I'm here once again in Artist Alley with one of my favorite local creators, Daniel Brodie, the creator of Morgan's Organs. Daniel, how are you doing, and what's happening today with Morgan's Organs?
Well, we're here promoting book 1 and 2. Got some cool new stuff like pins. Got a Pepe figurine that you can see over here, brand new. Hopefully make that as a Kickstarter award for the future. And yeah, just trying to get excited about book 3, which should be coming out hopefully this year.
So what is Morgan's Organs all about?
So Morgan's Organs, bill it as Inside Out for Grown-Ups, Sausage Party with Organs, craziness inside of a human. So basically, it's about this university student, Morgan, and he doesn't really have full control of himself because these organs run around doing what they want versus what's best for him. And usually it just leads to him ending up in embarrassment or pain or punishment. And yeah, even though it's meant to be funny, there's always some sort of message that we try to give along with it.
And with the 3rd issue on its way, where do you draw your inspiration from to get the storylines?
I don't know. I guess it comes from anywhere. A lot of my stories, I wrote them up many years ago as just like a 2-sentence logline, and so from there, I kind of just think about what story do I want to write next. I did do like a little survey at the end of my last Kickstarter, ask people what they want to see next, and I'm lucky because the story I wanted to write was the story everyone wanted to see. So if someone said something else, I might have been a little bit shit out of luck on that. So this next one, I just kind of took a while to figure out exactly how to do it. Talk to my artists. We talked about sort of a memento style to it. So I rewatched the movie, wrote a bunch of notes, and thought about how to integrate it. It took a long time. It's a difficult thing to put together a comic, especially when you're trying to do a certain structure. So it took about 3 or 4 months. But one day you just get an epiphany and it all comes together. And so I'm happy to say the book 3 script is done. We do have the poster here to show off. That's what the cover is going to look like. So yeah, it'll be a good story.
So can you tell us a bit of developing an issue, like the process that you guys go through, coming up with storyboards and then putting all the art together to create an issue?
Yeah, sure. So a lot of it is myself, like just putting together the script, sharing it, trying to get some feedback from the artists and all that. I try to write in a certain style to encourage this sort of paneling. So this is an example of what my scripts look like. So you can see, instead of just doing standard script, I actually suggest the layouts and how the pages break and all that. So I think it makes it a bit easier on the artist too, because they don't have to visualize as much. Obviously Rob can change it how he likes, but at least he has a starting point. So let's say very much it's a bit stage by stage. Each person does their own thing. So whenever I feel good about the script, that's when I tell the art team to get involved in it. Try to get some writer friends to help me out, get some feedback. And then Rob does all the pencils, the inks, and now we have Tyler doing all the coloring, and I help out with letters. So yeah, it's a pretty solid team.
Do you have any plans at all in the future for a graphic novel once enough issues get developed? Or
yeah, I mean, it'd be nice to do. Once I have 4 books in, that'll be 120 pages of content. It'd be nice to do a trade version of that. I think because they're such long stories, they hold merit as individual books, and because it is it's not a continuing story, it doesn't need to be a trade paperback. I think people would enjoy it just as much as individuals. So I'm trying to think what makes the most sense for the quality of it. I don't want to do trades just for the sake of doing trades. I might just continue to keep it single stories, and maybe some sort of slipcase that you can store all of your copies in, kind of like a season.
And where can we find Morgan's Organs outside of the Comicon if we want to support issue number 3 or get our hands on the previous issues?
Yeah, morgansorgans.com. You can check us out there, and we have a shop link. We're in a couple local stores, like Silver Snails, our home store at Yonge and Dundas. Otherwise, yeah, you can just follow along on social media, find out when we're launching the next book, Kickstarter, and all that. And yeah, thank you.
Thanks, man. Steven Andrews has developed a project called Toronto Comicon, which is an anthology project putting together a bunch of local talent, all from the GTA, to develop a series of comic stories. A lot of them are first-time creators, some of them are well-established, like Keith Grachow, who's also involved in this project, and I was very happy to meet Steven Andrews and catch what he had to say. All right, Nerd League, I'm here once again in Toronto Comicon 2018, and I'm with Steven Andrews, who is the creator of the Toronto Comics Anthology. So, Steven, thank you very much for coming to the Nerd Down, and maybe you can give us a rundown of what the Toronto Comics Anthology is.
Every year, we get a whole bunch of artists and writers together to tell stories inspired by the city. We're all mostly first-time creators, folks just getting their first wings out there, and we aim to provide a platform for new creators from Toronto, from the Canadian region, to try and get their work out there.
So each book is a separate collection of stories all on its own, and it's all local talent, right?
Absolutely. We're just starting our 5th anthology, As Good as Gold, which is 220 pages of full-color glory from local writers and artists.
And where can we find you guys outside of the Comic-Con, get our hands on some of this stuff?
If you look for us at TorontoComicsAnthology.com, you'll find all of our stuff there. We get a bunch of free comics, as well as a link to our Kickstarter for As Good as Gold, which is on right now.
Sounds good. Thank you very much.